last century, this solid stone house has borne silent witness to all the changing seasons of Saskatchewan life. Notoriously cruel winters, the destruction of dust storms, the highs of bumper crops, and the lows of drought. Thick walls have offered protection to generations of family members, hired hands, and serving girls. All were people who epitomized the best qualities of hard work, inner strength, and bulldog tenacity displayed by the homesteaders that settled Saskatchewan. The house was built by William Motherwell, who, as a young man, joined a wave of Ontario homesteaders heading to Saskatchewan in the early 1880s. A man of boundless energy, Motherwell used practical thinking and a little ingenuity to overcome the challenges of prairie farming. His agricultural innovations continue to be used by farmers over 100 years later. When the Great Stone House was built in 1897, William Motherwell himself carried each stone from the surrounding fields and coulees. The design and furnishings of his new home recalled the farmhouses of his Eastern Ontario birthplace and imported a Victorian-era refinement to the prairie frontier. Today, William Motherwell's imposing stone residence stands at the center of a working model of a successful turn-of-the-century Saskatchewan farm.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Motherwell Homestead, 1999. My name is Sheldon Matsala, and we're going to try and attempt to do some threshing here. We've set things up and got the heart par running half decent, and we got the belt on. We're going to start up our 1912 heart par tractor here, and we're going to start doing some separating. Power. Give it a go. Cool. Ready? Yeah.
Threshing Day is probably our biggest day in terms of representing what happened on the farm back in 1912 or back in this time period, and also our biggest day for visitors to come. People really enjoy seeing how harvest was conducted, and there are people who come through and they say, I don't want to have anything to do with that. I did it far too much when I was growing up.
It's just like coming back to my roots again, you know. It always brings back fond childhood memories of my early days on the farm. And yeah, I try to make a point of coming back at least once a year. I was born here, of course, in 1924. I lived here until I was 16 on the farm, and then I went out to British Columbia. This is what we did in our spare time. My brother carved his name in here. He's got his S's backwards, and I didn't have much room, so I just put my initials here. I'm down in history now, I guess.
In the 1870s, young farmers from Ontario began to pour into Manitoba. A decade later, when the buffalo had been hunted out and the Native nations had signed treaties, the onrushing settlers pushed further west.
In the 1880s, there was a lot of promotions for people to move out to the prairie area. And a lot of people from Ontario came to settle in various pockets throughout the prairies. And Abernathy was one of the spots where people from the east settled.
The Government of Canada wanted farmers in the West, so the Dominion Lands Act of 1872 made a bold promise. For a paltry $10, Canada would give 160 acres of land to any young man who would pledge to build a house and improve the land through agriculture. But But they had to get to the land first. And in 1882, with the Canadian Pacific Railway still under construction, that was a challenge in itself. The end of the line for 22-year-old W.R. Motherwell from Perth, Ontario, and his young bachelor companions was at Brandon, Manitoba. Motherwell loaded his few belongings onto an ox cart and set out for Saskatchewan. At Abernathy, just north of the beautiful Qu'Appelle Valley, he staked his claim to his quarter section.
The first couple of years that he lived out here, he lived in a tent. He first worked his land with a yoke of oxen, and then he acquired horses. Around that time, he started to visit his neighbors, and they had a sister who was keeping house for them. Her name was Adeline.
Well, women were a valuable commodity on the frontier because men needed women to help look after the houses. A lot of women who came west, like Adeline, came west to act as housekeepers for brothers or for male family members, and they faced miserable conditions. I remember reading the diary of one woman who came to Alberta, and this woman was talking about cleaning in her brother's cabin, and she scraped a whole pail full of dirt and grease off the floor. And this woman came out with, you know, all kinds of expectations of pleasant living on the prairies.
Young eligible farmers seeking wives found themselves participating in a prairie ritual. This involved outsitting the brothers of a young woman, enduring hours of conversation with these men, just in the hope of gaining a few moments alone with their sweetheart. W.R. Motherwell finally took his bride Adeline to the altar in 1884.
I've seen one photograph of Adeline and W.R. and a baby outside the cabin, and the cabin looks mighty fine to me. It looked as though W.R. was a fairly good provider and made sure she was living in fairly pleasant circumstances.
In the 1890s, immigrants from the United States and from Europe began to join the pioneers from Ontario. Established farms enjoyed many consecutive years of bumper crops. The Motherwell homestead prospered, and W.R.'s landholdings steadily increased. By the turn of the century, he and his hired men had constructed the large stone house and the lower half of the barn. But in 1905, the Motherwell homestead's successes were marred by a tragedy. Adeline, just 44 years old, passed away. Motherwell soon remarried. His second wife, Catherine Gillespie, typified the dynamic, independent women of the Prairie West.
She was a teacher at the Indian residential schools and then became a principal, so she had proven managerial abilities. I also think she was probably a dynamic personality, and that attracted him to her. Plus, she was just crazy about him, so it was a smart move all around on his part.
Catherine quickly established herself in her new role as matriarch of the homestead. She became a leading figure in the Edwardian society. Abernathy was far away from the legendary Wild West of American folklore. On this part of the Canadian prairie, successful farm families wanted to build gracious, morally upright, and staunchly Presbyterian communities.
Well, I can still remember Mr. and Mrs. Motherwell coming into church in Abernathy. They had their own pew, which was the second pew from the front. And you know how people love to sit at the back of the church, but not Mr. and Mrs. Motherwell. They were directly in front of the pulpit, and they, hello, Prissy. They really did, well, I guess they were just well known by everyone, even to me.
Mrs. Motherwell has such a reputation for being religious and moralistic and uptight, but I discovered that she had mauve silk stockings, and I think anyone who had mauve silk stockings can't be as uptight as you think.
The constant of human history has been war. Every Thursday night at noon, Join the front lines to experience the weapons and tactics that decided history's most important battles. History of War Thursdays, every Thursday night at 9, only on History Television.
My lawn is really my pride and joy. I know it's weed-free, I know it's dandelion-free. I know that for a fact because I hate dandelions. But every time I'm out here working on it, my neighbor Lana says, "How do you get rid of your dandelions?" I do it by using Scott's Turf Builder Plus 2. The light granule sticks to that wet leaf much easier than a heavy granule, which would fall off. If it doesn't stick, it just doesn't work. Apply it, sticks to the leaf, Zappo. No more dandelions. Actually, to tell you the truth, she's trying to keep up with me. Uh-oh, I think she heard me. I think it's the greatest product ever made.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, Flight 126 has been cancelled. There is another flight, Union Atlantic Air Flight 176, at a gate 54. It has 5 remaining seats.
MySAP.com helps companies and people work together in real time.
Correction, 4 remaining seats.
Hey.
Widening 8-second lead, Honda's car dominance is showing once again.
Right from the start, these Honda bikes have been running 1-2 and showing no sign of slowing down. With an amazing drive, Honda is clearly back in F1 racing.
Want to see the results of our latest racing endeavors? Just look in the garage. Honda, the largest engine manufacturer in the world.
It's another great day for Honda.
Ice Week, following the playoffs on History Television. You are watching Canadian History Wednesdays on History Television.
For Saskatchewan's first homesteaders, the years after 1900 were a golden era. Their farms were established, their communities were growing fast. They seem to have written the rule book on successful prairie farming. And it's this period that today's Motherwell homestead preserves for the visiting public. Inside the house, most prosperous farm families of the era employed 2 or 3 hired girls. They looked after the house, cooked the meals, and prepared the fruit and vegetables for preserves. A thriving farm also employed as many as 4 hired hands at any given time. These were often young men who had journeyed west with the intention of one day establishing their own homestead.
Hired hands around 1912, they would probably be making around $10 to $15 a month, and that included your meals and room and board. Hired men would probably get up probably around 4:35 in the morning. They'd get up and they'd feed and water and groom the horses and get things ready for the rest of the day. Number one thing is to keep your barn nice and clean, I would think, and they would come and hustle the stone boat through and clean up behind the cows and behind the horses and take that out into the summer fallow field and work that in as their fertilizer. Horses were very important to Mr. Motherwell's time period here. Everyone had horses. You grew up with horses. Horses did all your farming. They took you to town. They did everything for you.
Come on.
Well, in Mr. Motherwell's barn, he could hold 12 to 14 horses. At one time, Mr. Motherwell had 32 horses. Depending on how big an implement you were pulling and how long you pulled it for, you might need 4 or 6 horses on a particular piece, and you would work that maybe 3, 4, 5 hours, and then you would have to rest those horses. And that was one of the one of the big pushes for the tractor. And they could just keep going and going, and a tractor would take the place of 10 to 14 horses and maybe 2 to 4 hired men.
As the new settlers learned to cope with prairie farm conditions, W.R., who had been to agricultural college back in Ontario, played a key role. In 1885, a shortage of horses led him to an important innovation in dry land farming techniques. In the spring of 1885, the Northwest Mounted Police marched through the prairies, conscripting farmers' horses for use in subduing the Métis uprising led by Louis Riel. Without horses, W.R. and his neighbors could not plant any crops, and the fields lay barren for an entire growing season. The following year produced the best crop Motherwell and his neighbors had ever seen. He realized that leaving a field fallow, or plowed but unseeded, for one season gave the soil a chance to rest, build up moisture, and revitalize itself.
Well, I think he had a considerable impact on farming. He was always experimenting on different grains, brome grass. I think one time he was named Brome Grass King of North America at the Chicago exhibition. And he was always innovative in testing new crops, methods of farming, summer following, and that kind of thing.
Scientific farmers sought new techniques for enduring challenges. One was a constant supply of fresh water. Motherwell was the first farmer in the area to build a dugout reservoir on his land. It trapped melting snowdrifts in the spring and collected sparse rainfall throughout the summer. The water was then filtered and used as drinking water for the family and farm animals. By the turn of the century, 2 decades of homesteading, hardships, and several years of outstanding crops seemed to have earned W.R. and his neighbors a quiet middle age of comfort and contentment. Instead, they plunged into a new challenge, a new conflict. Since the first prairie sod had been turned, prairie farmers have been battling the grain companies. Farm leader E.A. Partridge, the sage of Sintoluta, Saskatchewan, went to the Winnipeg Grain Exchange and called it a combine with a gambling hell thrown in. The middlemen between the farmers and the market seemed to suck up all the profit. W.R. Motherwell joined the fight for farmer-run cooperatives that could run grain elevators and ship and market prairie grain. W.R.'s efforts with the Territorial Grain Growers Association were rewarded in the fall of 1905. With the support of Prime Minister Wilfrid Laurier, Motherwell became Minister of Agriculture in the first Saskatchewan legislature. His political career would blossom rapidly.
Next week, meet the Canadian flying ace who shot down the Red Baron. Then, stories of our past on Historylands, followed by a scattering of seeds. Next week on Canadian History Wednesdays, only on History Television. Ice Week premieres Sunday, June 18th on History Television.
Do rich people deserve more space than the rest of us? Was technology meant to improve their lives alone? Do the stars shine for their eyes only? Introducing the special edition Century 2000. With so many unexpected amenities for an unexpected price. The new Century 2000 by Buick, a luxury car for everyone.
him tickets? We're definitely going the wrong way.
No, we're not.
Well, it's your company picnic.
With all the added features that come standard on the new Honda Accord Special Edition, why settle for a car that makes getting there only half the fun?
Legs first?
Yeah. Move. Oh, very mature.
We are so lost. I give up.
The remarkably equipped Accord Special Edition.
Well, let's just keep looking.
Sounds good.
At $25,400, it's one powerful car.
When you get heartburn caused by acid reflux, it's like hot splashes scorching up your chest and throat. Before you see a doctor, try non-prescription Gaviscon. Gaviscon tablets feel different. They become smooth and creamy on the way down. Then Gaviscon forms a soothing, protective barrier that helps keep acid down. Fast relief so you can get back to sleep. So write it down. Get Gaviscon, non-prescription relief from acid reflux.
Oh, I forgot something.
You wouldn't soak your chicken in water after it's cooked, so why let someone soak it before? That's what most of the competition do with their water chill process. Maple Leaf Prime chicken has no water added, tender, juicy, and full of flavor. So what would you rather serve? Maple Leaf Prime chicken. It's prime every time.
Classic historical films every weekend at 9 with host Ann Medina. Sunday.
We must make certain that no air attacks against us can be mounted from Midway.
In every war, there is a battle to end all battles.
Signal a hornet, Captain Browning. Let's get to battle stations.
This entire plan is not only unnecessary, but doomed to fail.
Charlton Heston stars in Midway. Sunday, 9 Eastern on History on Film. You are watching Canadian History Wednesdays on History Television.
Now wealthy, established, and respected, the early settlers who had stayed the course became unchallenged leaders of the Prairie's farm society. For W.R., the path of leadership led him far from the homestead. In 1921, he was elected to the House of Commons in Ottawa, where he served 2 terms in Mackenzie King's cabinet as Minister of Agriculture. As minister, W.R. raised the standards of quality for Canadian grain exports, consolidating Western Canada's reputation as the greatest grain-producing nation in the world. But political power could not protect the prairies from the devastation that was soon to come.
This is erosion. This film will show you why wind erosion and water erosion occur and what they do to the land.
In the 1930s, the prairie provinces suffered a double blow: drought and the Great Depression. The decade earned its name as the Dirty 30s.
Dust storms like this are simply clouds of topsoil, the most valuable part of our land, being blown away from the fields and pastures and scattered over hundreds of square miles.
I can still remember my little mother dipping hand towels in water and laying them on the windowsills to keep the dust out of the house. And the dust storms were just atrocious.
My sister and I spent some happy hours, really, playing in dust. We thought it was just wonderful. We thought we had a ready-made sand pile. There's still a bit of evidence at the Motherwell farm of those years when the soil did drift.
The hard lessons of the Dirty 30s forced amendments to W.R.'s great innovation of summer fallowing. For when the rains failed, a fallow field, plowed free of weed and stubble, simply blew away in the hot wind. By the early 1930s, W.R. had retired from political office. He returned to the homestead to pursue his love for farming with all its challenges. Despite the hardships of the decade, the Motherwell family fared comfortably. W.R. Motherwell died in 1943 at the age of 83.
We thought a great deal of Mr. Motherwell. We were always very proud to know that he belonged to us. I always used to think of him as a very gentlemanly man, very used to being in crowds in Regina and Ottawa, and then he'd come home to Abernathy and was just one of us. It was wonderful.
He was a leader of men. People even called him a statesman in overhauls.
W.R. Motherwell and his homestead represent a tribute to the founding fathers and mothers of modern Saskatchewan. These young English Canadians were the first generation to move out onto the dry prairie expanse to farm. Today, they're synonymous with prairie success, ingenuity, and the fruits of hard-won experience. Today, Hugh Stuick farms the 2,000 acres surrounding the Motherwell homestead, including the fields W.R. first broke with horse teams and oxen. Hugh and many Saskatchewan farmers find themselves in a desperate struggle to hang on to the family farm and to their independence. They are caught in an intense battle with the large farming corporations that control tens of thousands of acres. Grain prices seem forever stuck in the era of the Great Depression, and family-operated farms are disappearing on a daily basis.
The challenge is to make enough to cover your expenses. If you can't cover your expenses, well, you won't exist. It's been a lifelong pleasure for me, but I don't see that much future for the coming generation. It's very, 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 very sad.
With the traditional family farm enduring such stress in the new millennium, the Motherwell homestead serves as an important reminder of a glorious era on the prairies that may be gone forever.